Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's video. I want to introduce you to Amanda. We've been working together for quite some time now, and I'm really excited for her to share her health journey because it's very unique and we've seen a lot of wins along the way. So Amanda, why don't you get us started by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm Amanda Thongmere. We live on a farm just south of Etonia, which is about 2 hours southwest of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So we're probably out in the middle of nowhere. We're surrounded by a lot of fields. And I work with my husband. We organic farm, and we have 3 kids. And about 5 years ago, after my last pregnancy, I started having allergic reactions to everything possible. I went into anaphylactic shock 2 weeks after she was born and spent quite a few years searching for why I would react to everything possible. I would eat and I'd have a reaction. I wouldn't eat and I would have a reaction. I lived on about 8 Benadryl a day for some time, and I was about to go down to the States. I felt that our medical system had done everything possible for us when I met you. So that's when it all started to change.
And I can imagine having kids and trying to work while taking Benadryl would have been challenging in terms of your energy levels as well. Did you notice energy was an issue for you at the start too?
Oh, I had no energy. I had to have a nap every afternoon. I was lucky my sister came and lived with us so she could look after the kids. I had terrible brain fog all the time. I couldn't keep anything straight or remember what I was doing or even function, really. I look back and I feel badly for probably what I wasn't providing for the kids at that time, but I couldn't even look after myself, right? So,
Yeah. And what were some of the things that you had tried in the past? So it kind of came out of nowhere and then it was recommended just to take antihistamines?
yes, my first doctor recommended the antihistamines, and I think when I started on the ranitidine as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the specialist and he told me that I had a sulfite intolerance and sent me home with a list of foods that I could not have, which I think was really the start of my spiral of fear of food.
Mm-hmm.
I probably had 5 things in my diet that I was comfortable with at that time, and a lot of it consisted of broth. And then I went to a lot of different doctors, and I finally found one in Regina who believed that I have mastocytosis, and that's when we started on the singular, and I think we upped my dose of everything else at that point. I did see a naturopath at one point, and they suggested a broth diet for me without very much instruction, and I had to do it for 30 days. And I was still breastfeeding at the time. So I lost 25 pounds in that 30 days and had to stop breastfeeding. So that was very difficult, right? And that's when a lot more symptoms started to pop up. And then I feared food more and more. And then I finally found a doctor in Kindersley who specialized in allergies. And we figured out all the doses of my medication from there. And we could at least decrease some of the Benadryl. And I didn't use the EpiPens as much anymore.
Yeah. And one of the things that we did that I was really happy that we ran was the GI map stool test, because a lot of, different varieties of gut bacteria can actually overproduce histamine as well and create some of these issues with foods. So we ran that test and identified some dysbiosis, which we've corrected, as well as, interestingly enough, there was some immune system changes in your gut too, which we had to correct with various nutrient therapies to help support your overall normal flora to come back into the normal balance as well. And was there any medications that you've been able to come off in the process?
Yeah, we've seen great results, haven't we? I don't take any Benadryl anymore. We came off the ranitidine, and we've decreased the amount of Reactin that I am on. So we've seen huge improvements there. And I haven't used my EpiPen in over 2 years now.
Well,
So
yeah, and pharmaceutical medications, when needed, they're absolutely needed, and they provide really great benefits, especially in an allergic reaction. You have to have those medications, but we also want to be mindful, and I think not a lot of individuals realize this, is medications can deplete some of your key vitamins and minerals. So if you have to be on something, there's a resource called My Tavin, Tavin. You can actually just type in your medications there and see what nutrients are depleted and the symptoms that you may experience when those nutrients are low, and then consider replacing if needed. So that was one of the things that we worked on as well, saying, okay, you've been on these medications, you need to be on them. What possibly are you missing in terms of vitamins and minerals, and how can we add that back in from a dietary and supplemental standpoint? And in terms of your foods, tell us a little bit more about 5 foods previously. What is your nutrition plan like now?
It's opened up a whole new world especially being on the MRP program, right? My food fear was so big that I didn't even want to stray from that list. I think you really had to fight with me sometimes to get me to try something outside of my realm. But it's been great because now I can figure out my trigger foods as well. So I eat a great variety of fruits and veggies now, which I didn't before. And I can even sneak in, tomatoes is a big one for me. It caused a lot of reactions, and I can sneak it in every couple days now without a reaction. I found that broccoli and cauliflower bother me a little bit, but again, in small doses, I can still handle those. But I would say that I'm well over 20 foods now for sure. Yeah. So it's wonderful.
And what about restaurants? Are you able to go and find something at a restaurant now that you can enjoy?
Yes, that was a huge one. I felt like if we did eat out, I felt like a huge inconvenience, right? Because you'd have to go to restaurants that didn't put anything on their steaks, that didn't, right? Or you had to make sure I had salad dressing on the side. And now I can comfortably walk into a restaurant and choose what the best option is that they have available, right? Instead of trying to fit it into all of my needs. Mm-hmm. And most of the time I can eat there and not feel terrible after, have a gut ache after. So
and what was pretty cool. Your motivation for starting the Reset program?
Once I figured out that I could eat food and enjoy it again, I had started to gain some weight, and I knew that the weight gain would affect my whole body system eventually, right? And I was noticing some more reactions coming up or more bloating. And so I thought it was the perfect time, now that we have everything figured out, to be able to reset everything and find that perfect balance with everything. So.
And what would be your biggest takeaway or a non-scale victory? I know the Reset program, everyone is really focused on the weight, and the weight is amazing that it comes off so quickly, but I also want to focus on non-scale victories. So if you could name a couple that didn't have anything to do with the weight that you benefited from the program.
I would say my energy, of course, is a big one, but bloating for me has always been a huge problem with the inflammation responses to the food. I have noticed huge improvements there. My rings fit better. My stomach isn't as large. And I would say introducing more foods into my diet and feeling safe about it. With Allison, I've learned that I had so much stress associated with even eating my food that most of the time my stomach pain after wasn't due to the food itself, but due to the stress of me working myself up about it. So that was a huge win for me. And we've carried it over into my whole family now. We make a very conscious effort at dinner to do that. So.
Yeah, that's often overlooked. Like, in order for us to start producing those digestive enzymes and get our stomach acid going, we have to be in that rest and digest state. And so many individuals come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm experiencing bloating after lunch." It's like, "Okay, well, what are you eating?" "Oh, I'm driving with my kids to here while scarfing down a protein bar." And I was like, "Well, how fast do you eat it?" "Oh, quickly," right? So it's often those basic things of chewing your foods and being mindful of the state that you're in when you eat the food is often equally as important.
Yes, and that's been a huge takeaway, especially in the second round for me, to focus more and more on that.
And so you did your first round of the metabolic reset, which for those who don't know, it's 6 weeks. Then you do the 4 weeks of maintenance. Then you can enter into another losing round if you choose. Have you noticed any differences between your first round or your second round? Is it easier? Is it more challenging?
You know what? I'm finding it more challenging this time, but I think it's just because the kids are home due to quarantine, right? Before I had time to food prep and do that stuff, but it's been a little more difficult this time. But I'm fine. Again, I'm seeing the big results it's a great reminder for energy and bloating and that kind of stuff.
What have you pinpointed, if you can share, if you even know, that has been creating the bloating? Is it the nutrient timing or how you're eating, or is it the tomatoes, or what was it for you?
I think it's the food itself causing the inflammation more. The tomatoes and the broccoli and the cauliflower and that kind of stuff. I'll notice minimal inflammation or bloating as soon as I have it.
Mm-hmm. Have you been cooking them different ways? Like, does cooking make it worse or better compared to eating it raw?
You know what, with tomatoes, cooking it does make it a little bit better, and putting it in a sauce with other stuff, I won't react as much. But the broccoli and cauliflower in anything, I can notice right away.
Those sulfur-based foods. Yeah, we might have
Yeah.
to dig into your genetics again and see if we can pinpoint the reason why that is. A lot of individuals, like, the problem is we get into this really health mindset and we want to eat, the whole head of cauliflower in a cauliflower rice, or the whole head when it's roasted cauliflower. It's like, it's a gas forming food. If you eat a lot of it to a degree, it's normal to have some gas after broccoli and cauliflower. And it's hard when we're working with really health conscious individuals to, get that mindset that to a degree it's normal to feel some bloating after cauliflower as well. Yeah.
Well, I think the genetic testing really helped too,
Mm-hmm.
right? For us, like to take the magnesium and see results right away was a huge
Mm-hmm.
help for me too.
And the best part about doing genetic testing is your genetics don't change. You can influence the way genes are turned on or turned off, but it's not a test that you ever need to repeat. So we can always go back to that baseline level and further dig into, what are your detox pathways? What are your hormone variants? How do you process your neurotransmitters? That's one of my favorite tests to look at, as well as the gut testing and hormone testing.
Yeah, it was cool. I like that one a lot.
And what would you say to someone who maybe is in their second round as well of the reset program, that's also finding it a little bit more challenging with their kids at home? Do you have any words of wisdom or motivation to those to keep them excited, motivated, on track?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's easier, right? Second round too, knowing the end result, right?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing how good you can feel and that energy that you can have throughout the summer. I think that's really pushing me too, right? Is to enjoy the time at home with the kids. And I've been including the kids more in the cooking aspect. And that has really helped get them excited then too. So, and they're willing to try new stuff. Like they all like the Zevia pop now. They'll all drink that instead. And so, yeah, just to find different ways to keep it exciting for all of you instead of maybe just yourself.
And do you find that the meals, there's enough variety and different types of foods that anyone in your family can consume more or less the same meals that you are?
Yes, that's another thing too, right? I was cooking 2 to 3 meals sometimes for one mealtime because mine was so different than theirs. And but with this, Nathan can put his own seasoning on and it's perfect, right? Or the kids can have some part of it and they won't eat all of it. But it's been very easy to transition that way instead of cooking numerous things for
Yeah.
one meal.
And I like too that it's, I always say it's whole foods. Like healthy foods is really for everybody. And for those who are on the losing phase, it's more restrictive in terms we're taking out a lot of those inflammatory foods just so we can identify if you are or are not sensitive to them when we move into maintenance. So if your kids are consuming the same meals, they can have, add-ons to the sides that maybe aren't included in your plan. And it becomes really easy and flexible that way. I don't know how you were cooking 3 meals well on Benadryl and trying to make it through the day. Like I take one Benadryl and I'm out for the night.
I'm lucky it didn't affect me a lot, or else I would have been had lots of problems.
And what are some words of wisdom for anybody right now if they're on the fence of whether or not they want to get healthy at this time?
I feel that it's the best time to do it, right? Like, I think we all did a lot of soul searching through this quarantine process. And I think now is the perfect time because it's a new opportunity. Everything's changing at once, right? So why not be the change now as well and feel better walking into, because there's still a lot of unknowns, right? And I find that with the MRP and having someone there to help with the mental aspect of it is a huge help, and it helps you no matter what stage you're at, right? Yeah, I think now's the time for change if you're going to do it before we jump back into life.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you said. It's whole body. So it's not just about weight loss. If you're solely focused on weight as your main driving factor and you're not interested in any of the other health benefits, or that's not a focus for you, then it's probably not going to be the best program for you, because you have to be grateful for where you are and appreciate your body for what it's doing for you right now, because every reaction in the way your body's behaving often is to serve you for some purpose. Once we get you back into alignment, then your symptoms go away, weight comes off, but it's all about focusing on the improvements in gut health, the improvements in mood, the improvements in energy. And we're big on bowel movements, so hopefully we're getting you pooping each and every day and sleeping. It's all those things that we really need to focus on versus just the number on the scale.
Yes, and that's why this program I've enjoyed so much, is it's not like, right, you get into that mental mindset of just the scale and it doesn't work. You don't see the results. You don't, and it is a whole process to figure, right, to get to know your body better. We can't just change one thing at a time. And that's what I've enjoyed about all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we do monitor weight each and every day to make sure it's moving in the direction that we want, but also it's a really great objective way to measure not if foods are good or bad, but if they're creating inflammation for you. So if you see a really big spike on the scale, then we can go back to your food log and say, hey, it seems like, for you for tomatoes, or what did you do yesterday? Oh, some people, I say reduce exercise and they're like, oh, I went and played tennis. I'm like, well, it kind of looks like you overdid it, because now you're up a pound, and it's not that you gained a pound overnight because you played tennis. It's just creating so much inflammation in your body that we need to scale it back for now at least, or find something different for you to do activity wise. So it's a great tool just to see what works for your body and what doesn't. And that could change, right? In a couple of weeks, maybe it turns out that you can have tomatoes more often.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see that for sure, right? How things can change. And that's what it's nice too, right? Is you can add stuff back in instead of never adding that back in. Some plans I was on, they're like, no, you're never having that again.
Mhm.
Well, but was that really the cause of, right? Like, so it's neat to be able to individualize the plan and say yes or no to certain things.
Yeah. And that's what we do in maintenance. So some individuals are, they just feel better off of gluten and dairy, so they stay off of that. Whereas other individuals, it works better in their lifestyle to be able to have it in. So we test it out and see how it does. For some, yeah, you can have dairy back in your diet. It doesn't create any issues. Great. For others, it might cause, some acne or nasal congestion. So they know if I'm going to consume dairy, it's going to be infrequently or maybe just not before an important photo shoot or something like that. But it's completely individualized to each person, because if it's not something that you can maintain long term, then you're just going to revert back. And that's the last thing I want. I don't want individuals having to come back to do the reset program over and over again because the weight has gone up. If you want to reset because you want to boost your energy again, that's completely different. But the hope is we coach you through the maintenance phase so it feels good for you to maintain long term.
Yes, and it was until I did really well until quarantine hit for a while, and then I got back on some of my trigger foods. But that's what started the second round. So
Yeah, and it's great because now you have the tools that you can carry forward. If there's ever a time where I know I have, I really have to have a lot of energy, I have to make sure that I feel good because there's an event or I'm busy or there's more stress, then I always go back to the same principles and go back to the intermittent fasting, go back to the balanced meals with lots of fruits and vegetables, and but you truly do feel better on whole foods.
you do. There's no, yeah, even after just a couple days, right? You feel the difference.
Absolutely. Is there any last pieces of advice or words of wisdom or things that we left out that you wanted to share?
Um, no, I think that I shared everything. I had a couple notes, but I just wanted to point out that I think we've been together almost 3 years now, and
Oh,
it's taken us 3 years to get to this point. And yeah, it was June. And I have seen amazing results through all of it. So thank you for treating me like a person instead of another number, which the doctors had seemed to do. So.
and thank you for you put in all the work. Everyone's like, I'm like, I just gave you the education. It was your responsibility to implement. And if you implement it and you're patient and you stay on track and you're willing to make the hard changes, like lifestyle changes are hard, but if you're willing to do it and have someone to hold you accountable, then the outcomes are just amazing.
They are. I would definitely not be here right now feeling this good if I hadn't made all those changes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's going to significantly inspire others as well. And good luck in your last, was it 3 more weeks of your next losing?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Do you have a goal for this round?
I want to be at my pre-pregnancy weight, so around like the 165 mark. So we'll see.
Seeing what you started at your first round.
210.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, really amazing.
Yes.
And the results truly all come because of your effort and all that foundational work that you put in at the start to improve your gut health prior to going on to the metabolic reset really made a big difference.
It did. It made a huge difference. That was my goal, to be able to do it. I remember talking about that. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I really appreciate you sharing and sticking with it and being patient and hanging in there. So I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you. Have a good day.